Hi everyone, my name is Samaya and I'm a founder at UX Woman and I'm here with Zoe who took our fall 2025 cohort for the 7-month UX Accelerator. So Zoe, I would love to hear a little bit about how you discovered UX Woman and what made you decide to choose the program.
Yeah, I think I discovered Woman through, I think one of the emails. I think it's Substack, and I kind of was interested in taking more UX courses to help kind of boost my experience. Since I kind of discovered it when I was still in college, around junior year to senior year, so I was kind of looking forward to planning my UX career. And then I signed up for a call with Samaya, and then I think. Yeah, I think I was really interested and I really loved how you kind of brought us through the course and led the end-to-end sort of process from UX research to design. And also having that entrepreneur and business side of things really made me learn a lot. So,
Hey, yeah.
mhm. Yeah.
And I'd love to, just for the folks who are a part of our YouTube community, I'd love for you to describe what you studied in college and how that influenced your project topic for UX Woman, but also your bigger goals as you become a researcher or designer in the industry. So, how did that all kind of come together as you did your UX career planning?
Yeah, I studied, so my major was media arts and sciences. It's like a joint major between computer science and art. And I found that to be a really sweet spot for me to explore my interests because I do have a wide variety of interests, kind of very interdisciplinary compared to maybe like those other majors that kind of focus on like one subject. So I took computer science courses that were more front-end web development, kind of looking at web design. And I thought I wanted to go into web design or like front-end web development. But then I also kind of discovered UX through a club at my college, and I really got into that. And I from that on, I wanted to cultivate a UX career. And so I think my mixed background of like being able to understand technology and use AI in a way that is helpful for designers, as well as having a little bit of back end experience, but then also learning more about human computer interaction, more research, in that sense. So I think. I think definitely I tried to kind of make the courses that I took in college a bit more cohesive for what I wanted to do after college and for my career, like moving forward.
Yeah. And I know that you have a really
Mhm.
extensive appreciation for film. So how did that
Yeah.
influence your UX woman topic and your dream UX job of where you want to be?
Yeah, I do have a great passion for films and I was a film minor at my college. I kind of mostly focused on like film theory. And the weird thing is I kind of didn't really know where I was gonna go when I went into like uh kind of studying film theory because the two, design and film seems kind of really separate. But I think by understanding the larger film and media landscape really helped me learn a lot about how I want to approach my work as a designer and how I want to allow my work to influence how media and the space of like technology and AI has been evolving. And I
Yeah.
think that that knowledge is really important to me. But yeah, I think that I kind of made that connection later on, towards the end of like my college years a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'm really glad that I kind of really followed my passion and then discovered these things are connected. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, also to your point about like the UX Woman project that I did, I wanted to sort of help, I guess, creatives and consumers who do feel frustrated about the lack of representation on media. And there are a lot of movies and TV shows that showcase a lot of really unique cultural identities
Yeah.
especially for Asian American Pacific Islander. But I think there's also much more that we could do as a community to be able to help champion these unique voices. So I think that's where I kind of found a way in through like design and also through my passion in film.
Yeah, I really love your project topic. I think it's really unique and really surfacing the content of AAPI creators and giving them a platform to really embrace their identity as AAPI creators is very unique as a value proposition of your platform. And then also having audiences who are excited and intent on consuming this type of content is really interesting. And I can see, bigger entertainment companies like Netflix or Disney, or HBO, or I know Brothers is being acquired at the moment. I don't know who's
Oh,
it's
okay.
going to or like what's happening there, but I think there's a lot of potential for a lot of these entertainment companies to get interested in it, or at least interested in your UX portfolio because you are so focused in the film space for UX. So I'm curious, can you describe the process of um, really identifying the key problem for your app? So you knew you wanted to focus on this topic because it was something you were passionate about, aligned with your future interests. But as you started to dig into the research, how did that go and what did you learn?
Yeah. Originally I had maybe like one or two hypotheses of how this was going to go because having kind of had a more academic background on sort of the, I guess, in film and media, I kind of knew where the tensions were a little bit, but I wasn't sure if those tensions were going to manifest itself as like a serious problem or like, I guess, a problem in the design challenge I was tackling. So I kind of reached out to different API creators and consumers and asking questions to help me understand their perspectives better and to empathize with them as well and to see if what I am hypothesizing about my problems are accurate or are close to what I want to go for in my project. And I think the research really kind of did the work itself in a way because once I started talking to these people, um, they gave me something much more valuable, I think, than my original hypothesis. And I was able to go with what they're saying in their responses in order to kind of cultivate a new type of solution for this product that I am tackling, misrepresentation API spaces and how there isn't one like centralized platform
Mhm.
or centralized app for users to consume content and to post and create content. So that research part has been really informative in terms of solidifying and refining my hypothesis. And then I was able to craft the solution pretty like readily from those interviews. And yeah, it was great.
Okay. I like how you said that it changed from your hypothesis to actually conducting the research, and then the research solved the problem in and of itself. So hearing about the problem directly from the users meant that you didn't have to just act on assumptions and hypotheses, and you had a concrete problem to solve. I guess moving forward, how did you combine the research with business insights and business strategy to come up with a
Mhm.
unique business model and MVP solution? Because I know those all kind of tie
Yes.
together and they kind of jumble up and you kind of have to like jump hats and wear multiple hats
Mhm.
if you think through these. So can you describe that process of, okay, you've gone through all this uncertainty and you've locked down the problem. Now you have the uncertainty of figuring out how to visualize the solution or the MVP and scope it into a unique business model for a startup. So what was that process like?
Yeah, I think the research part kind of solidify the sort of the problem and then the potential solution I could go with. But then there's also the business side where I had to do research on the industry and exactly what the industry is lacking, what they're doing really strongly, what they're kind of still grappling with a little bit. And kind of stumbled into this article about how API consumers are less likely to, for example, like consume or pay for content because from previous experience or previous content that they've consumed that they feel that they are not exactly represented in a well-rounded way. So I think that is a very unique business side of things that I've kind of dug into like my research. And I thought that because on the research side, these people are saying that that even though there are like good stuff out there, it's kind of all over the place and there's no one centralized platform. And they would love more stories that kind of are geared towards unique cultural identities. And then there's on the business side, API, like cultural storytelling, can really be a great, selling point for a lot of entertainment companies. Like Netflix. I know Netflix is really having that expansive like movement towards different types of TV shows. Squid Game was like really big
Yeah.
previously, yeah, and then sort of like really expanding to like the Asian market. So I thought that there was a way in by bridging sort of the problems users are facing and then also kind of the problems that businesses are facing because they do want to like kind of profit over it and then also have like revenue as well. So that kind of bridge these two things together in a way that I think works for how I kind of wanted to construct my solution.
Yeah. Okay. And what did you come up with ultimately as your
Mhm.
business model? So kind of
Yeah.
understand the psychological and emotional dynamics at play, but then translating it into,
Hmm.
okay, how will I survive as a business or succeed
Right.
as a business?
Yeah, I think it comes down to I kind of translated those like really emotional aspects into like concrete design features that I can kind of pitch as like a business selling point because ultimately I think there needs to be like concrete evidence and concrete solutions to like solving a problem through design. So my solution was I kind of titled it identity curation because it kind of sounded more authentic. It's basically helping consumers and creatives able to curate their own content by adding or dragging and dropping whatever they find interesting on the app into their homepage. So their homepage isn't necessarily bombarded by other content that they may not want to see. As we've experienced in social media, sometimes you just open an app and there's just stuff is just there. So it's a more intentional way of consuming content that fits into how each and every one person wants to consume content. So that was my main solution that I kind of devised from seeing how the business side worked and also how like the user side was like feeling.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. That's great to hear. And I'm also curious, kind of as you were wrapping up your project for
Mhm.
your own like unique solo project, you were also doing a consulting project with Gateways Creative and designing video game screens for Gateways to launch in, I think I would say March or April timeframe in Philadelphia. So what was that
Mhm.
process like of working on, a film-based app? And also having, this experience of working on video game and interactive game screens. Um, how did that happen or how did that take place?
Mhm. Yeah, I think the transition from the more my UX woman project, it's definitely like at the end of that project, I was doing a lot of prototyping because I already had, my features laid out. I was doing more of like component library building and more prototyping to make the screens flow together nicely and to have, seamless kind of interactions between the different screens. And that was for a mobile app. So I kind of just did mobile for the MVP development and then transitioning into the Gateways consulting project. I think it's definitely a different experience because there are already components and rules and game guidelines that are already outlined in the client brief from Gateways. And it was really cool just to like read through it and see, okay, this is what the dev team or like the engineer or the founder wanted to have in each screen. And so the first week I think was perhaps just like trying to figure everything out. But it was like very fun and also just like we were asking a lot of questions to clarify things. And then like as the weeks went on, we were much more, um, I guess much more we understood much more about the project because as we were prototyping, we kind of needed to translate certain game mechanics into prototype, into animations, into certain icons and branding icons as well. So that translation into the more technical side of designing and prototyping really solidified a lot of the game rules out. So the rooms that the elements that were confusing were immediately dealt with because it was much more clear than just talking about vague ideas. Um, but I really enjoyed the Gateways Creative. It's a lot different than my project at UX Woman. But I found it really fun also to work with my teammates who were really great people and like also great designers. And I think I don't know, I feel like the process is very it was very smooth in a way that it kind of took no time at all. And we were at like the last meeting. But I did have to go through different iterations of what of like the different screens and play with prototyping as well to kind of see how it all came together.
Yeah. And you had a chance to work in sprints. So each sprint was about 2 weeks, 3 weeks with the holidays, and then a chance to also validate a lot of the ideas with the founder and the developer.
Yes.
So what was working in sprints like, especially where, the context was provided for you, you really couldn't do that much research. And also there were constraints of a physical game and having a more digital add-on to the physical game itself.
hmm
So what was it like working in those sprints and kind of coming up with a methodical way of going through design within these kind of sprint timelines?
hmm I think the sprint timelines were really helpful because it helped us kind of like, okay, in 2 weeks' time, we have the low fidelity wireframes, and then in another 2 weeks, we have the mid fidelity. So we kind of knew what our deliverables were going into designing. And so our meetings were very productive because we would kind of craft like we have an agenda saying we need to iron out the information architecture and like do some lo-fi kind of playing around with screens in the first for the first sprint, and then moving on to the second one. Okay, we actually need to find icons and branding stuff and like figure out what the game feel is going to be like, and also adhere to the color scheme and the style that our gameplay called Iron Diner. It was set in, so it's like a 1950s graphical style, and then like moving on from that, we did like high fidelity frames, and it was definitely a great like timestamp, like every 2 weeks, and the design sprints were really productive because in the meetings we also received a lot of great feedback on our screens, and where to improve. Maybe like some things are misaligned, and kind of just realign our designs with the client needs because sometimes it does happen to kind of go a little bit off rail a little bit. Sometimes they get carried away with prototyping and like designing. So it's always nice to come back and have that meeting to really communicate that.
Yeah, I would say that you probably gained a lot of expertise in project management, working with a team, a design team, and then stakeholder management, working with the client and the client teams. So I'm curious, in what ways did you learn to take design critique, but also push back on a client where you felt,
hmm
okay, the client's context is great, but there's something missing here, or there maybe have unrealistic expectations, and it's my job as the designer to push back and say, hey, we can't really do this, or yes, we can. So how did you handle that kind of push and pull?
Yeah, I think it does require some practice, but I think it's striking a balance between what the client really wants to do, like what they're prioritizing to do, and also understanding their project as well, even though it's the designers are crafting the interaction experience. For example, for my solo screen, like the top-down view was essential. It was like really important for the solo player to have the top-down view. And at first, with the top-down view, it became a little difficult to have like other elements surrounding it since it might be a little bit cluttered. But then I thought that it was because that information was really important, I, as a designer, could work around that sort of constraint, but also be creative with the constraints that I have. And then in terms of sort of as a designer pushing back and advocating for my designs, I think that also is a balance because as a designer, I kind of know more about how certain features would look and how that animation and prototyping, how the flow can disrupt or maybe smooth out certain kinks in the design. So from that knowledge, I'm able to say for certain features, I'm able to advocate for why I made that design decision and how that design decision impacts the gameplay between like solo player and ensemble player, and also how that kind of fits into this gameplay storytelling and client needs as well. So it's kind of about striking a balance between all of that. But it does vary by case by case.
Yeah. And I can tell just, as going through the program, you're really confident with how you speak and really eloquent about how you talk about the design process. And I think moving forward with all this experience and expertise under your belt, I think it would be easy for you to land the dream role that you have now that you have a really aligned portfolio with where you want to be and what's in alignment with your personal brand as well and your expertise. So I guess if you had any advice to folks who are currently a little bit lost about their UX career or who are considering a UX career, what would you tell them now that you've gone through this whole process?
I think for me, the UX journey has been really informative and educational in a sense that I I had to figure out, I guess, what my identity is as a person, but also as someone who is going to work in who is going like going to work. It doesn't matter if it's in corporate or not, if it's freelance. I think having a strong personal brand is very essential because there are a lot of designers who have a lot of the same skill sets. And I think that those are all great, but I think knowing who you are as a person and what you advocate for is so much more important because that really informs how you approach design and your problem solving kind of methods and tactics and also product strategy, which I think is also really important as a designer, being able to pinpoint how products are going to scale over time. But also being very understanding about how like the um I guess the important details are in design. For example, like design systems, components, and interactions. I think yeah, I think personal brand is an important part for how I've grown to be a designer in like the past few months.
Yeah, that's really great to hear. And I'm really excited to see you work for Netflix or Disney or HBO at
Thank
some
you.
point, and I'll be rooting for you there. But thanks so much for this, Zoe, and I'll pause our recording.